Here are the natural English translations of your requested text. Mythological tales of the Great Flood, though originating from different civilizations, share astonishing similarities. If the Great Flood is truly humanity's collective memory, what message is it trying to convey to us? What profound implications lie hidden behind an ancient event of global scale? This has sparked countless doubts and theories within humanity. Records of the Great Flood were inscribed on Sumerian clay tablets and also appear in the legends of the Maya people in Central America. The tales of the Muisca people in Colombia, the legends of Babylon, along with Indian folktales and epics. The Chinese myth of Yu the Great taming the floods and the Vietnamese legend of Sun Tin, Tui Tin. Researchers have compiled approximately 50 myths and legends about the Great Flood. Notably, all of them are recounted in detail, clearly, coherently, and especially share a similar narrative structure that when human morality declines, disaster is certain to strike, and only the virtuous will endure. Did the Great Flood truly exist? The answer is undoubtedly yes. About 10,000 years BC, the Earth's axis underwent a shift. The melting ice likely caused global sea levels to rise. However, a great flood like that would hardly wipe out all of humanity, but mainly cause severe flooding. In North America, scientists have determined that around 8,400 years ago, a sudden rise in sea levels occurred when the ancient Lake Agassiz unexpectedly drained. Two geologists, William Ryan and Walter Pittman from Columbia University, research indicates that a massive Great Flood occurred in the Middle East region at the end of the Ice Age, approximately 7,000 years ago. Archaeological evidence shows a layer of sediment between the soil strata in what is now Iraq. This trace dates back approximately 2,900 years, serving as evidence that a major flood once occurred. That's correct. However, scientific studies with varying timelines continue to raise the question: when exactly did the Great Flood occur? Regarding this matter, priest Achab once said to the ancient Greek philosopher Plato, "Perhaps there have been many great floods since the time Atlantis sank into the deep sea," to the legend of Deucalion in Greek mythology. This could also be a thought-provoking suggestion. From Sumerian legends to the Bible. In 1922, British archaeologist Silanad Wool began surveying and excavating the Mesopotamian desert region, located between Baghdad and the Persian Gulf. As a result, the ruins of the city of Ur from the ancient Sumerian kingdom were discovered, along with the tombs of its kings within the city. Wool and his colleagues also discovered an ancient clay layer beneath the tomb. Where does this 2-meter-thick layer of clay come from? After analyzing the clay sample, Wool concluded that it belonged to an alluvial sediment layer formed after a major flood. Wool believes this discovery is concrete evidence of a real historical event, the Great Flood, which was mentioned in ancient Mesopotamian legends. Sumeria was an ancient civilization located in the southern part of Mesopotamia, in what is now the Middle East. The Sumerian civilization emerged around 2900 BCE. In the deserts of Iraq, numerous Sumerian cuneiform clay tablets have been discovered, recording ancient myths and legends of Mesopotamia. Less than 1,200 years after the gods created humanity, the population grew endlessly thanks to the exceptionally ideal living conditions. The world is awash with chaotic sounds, like the echoing bellow of cattle everywhere. The gods in heaven were disturbed by humans. Enlil, the chief among the gods, decreed, "Find a moment." From then on, the god Enlil decided to unleash upon the world a terrible plague, followed by a severe drought, and finally a horrific famine, leaving humanity unable to reproduce and thrive. However, whenever faced with the threat of annihilation, humans would turn to pray to the god Enki, the deity who had created civilizations. The deity taught them how to overcome the disaster, restoring the earth to its original state as in the beginning. Finally, when he could endure no more, the god Enlil persuaded the other deities to unleash a great flood to wipe out humanity. At this moment, the god Enki spoke in protest, declaring that he could not possibly destroy the very beings he had created. Nevertheless, despite Enki's warnings, the gods unanimously decided to unleash a great flood upon the earth. The god Enki sought out Artahasis, a man who had completely lost faith in the gods. He commanded Artahasis to forsake his wealth, dismantle his house, and build a great boat to save all living creatures on earth by taking a male and female pair of each species. The floodwaters rose so high that people could no longer see each other clearly. The roaring sound of the water was deafening, like the furious thrashing of a maddened bull. The sky was pitch black, not a trace of sunlight remained. Goddess Nin too wept for mankind, moving the other gods to tears as well. After the Great Flood, the god Enlil and the other deities suddenly realized their mistake, their hearts filled with regret for what had happened. At that moment, Artahasis stepped out of the ship, and the first thing he did was offer sacrifices to the gods. Though he had just expressed his remorse, the god Enlil still could not quell his anger toward the god Enki for allowing a human to survive. However, the god Enki persuaded Enlil to agree, then invited the gods to receive Atrahasis' sacrificial offerings. During the ceremony, the god Enki proposed that the gods should create a new race of humans with more limited reproductive abilities, including women who would be unable to conceive. The women participating in the ritual to worship the deities must be virgins. The gods agreed with Enki's plan and rewarded Atrahasis by taking him up to heaven. The goddess Nintu began the work of creating a new generation of humanity. On the ancient stone stele, the list of kings from the Sumerian civilization includes a record related to the Great Flood disaster as follows. After the royal authority descended from the heavenly court, it resided in Eerie. At Eridu, Ululim became king and reigned for 28,800 years. Below describes 5 capitals and 6 different kings. When Zimbur fell, the power of the dynasty was transferred to Suruppak. Ubaratutu ascended to the throne simply because he was of the Nam Sa lineage and belonged to the Muk-Nur clan. Sa and Ne were units of time measurement in years within the Sumerian calendar system. Antarctica lost its ice sheet about 18,600 years ago. Then came the flash flood Kwa. After the floodwaters receded, the kingship was once again bestowed from the heavens, and the throne returned to the land of Kish. Today, scientists conclude that the ancient stone steles of the Sumerians carry more of a mythical hue than historical documentary value. Nevertheless, the details of the Great Flood Kwa battle, inscribed on ancient stone steles listing the kings, serve as definitive evidence affirming the Sumerians' belief in the historical Great Flood. The Sumerian legend also parallels the Epic of Gilgamesh inscribed on an Assyrian stele, a civilization that emerged around 2500 BCE. The Assyrian tale also recounts terrifying plagues and a great flood. But the distinctive feature of the Epic of Gilgamesh lies in this: the guardian deity of humanity is the god Ea, and the one instructed by Ea is none other than Unapishtim. 6 days after the Great Flood began, the waters started to recede. Unapishtim released the first bird from the door to test, but it could not fly far. Next, he released a swallow, but the result was still no better. Finally, when released, a raven flew away, signaling to Unapishtim that the waters had receded. He stepped outside and offered sacrifices to the gods. A similar story is recorded in the Bible, about Noah. After the rain lasted for 40 days and nights, the Great Flood continued for another 157 days. As the floodwaters gradually receded, Noah's Ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. Noah opened the window and released a raven to check if the water had receded, but the raven only dared to fly back and forth nearby. Next, Noah sent out a dove again, but it couldn't find a place to perch, so it returned to him. Noah waited another 7 days and then released the dove again. This time, when it returned, the dove had a fresh olive branch in its beak. Noah patiently waited another 7 days and once again released the dove to fly away. This time, it did not return. Noah laid the white cloth down, stepped out of the boat's cabin, and noticed the ground had begun to dry. He gave thanks to God and was blessed with his divine manifestation. The astonishing thing is that similar stories also emerged in Mesopotamia, some of which date back nearly 5,000 years. The passage reveals a widespread belief in the existence of the Great Flood, along with the striking similarities between the stories of Noah's Ark, Artahasis, and Utnapishtim. The Great Flood in the time of Deucalion and the birth of humanity from stone. Mythological tales of the Great Flood, though originating from different civilizations, share astonishing similarities. If the Great Flood is truly humanity's shared memory, what message is it trying to convey to us? The lead implication conceals an event from ancient times of global significance. That event has left humanity with countless doubts and unresolved hypotheses. Greek mythology recounts that a great flood wiped out nearly all of humanity, with only those fortunate enough to climb the high mountains surviving. The main story of this great flood is closely tied to the figure of Deucalion, which is why this event is also known as the Deucalion Flood. The Great Flood occurred during the Seacroft-Strivi Athens era. This was also the time of Aesir, the father of Europa, whose name would later be given to the continent of Europe. Greek mythology refers to this period as the Bronze Age, preceded by the Silver Age, when humans lived longer and children took 100 years to reach adulthood. The Golden Age was even more ancient, predating the reign of Zeus atop Olympus. In the Golden Age, humans did not toil but only wandered and reveled in the vibrant spring until they lay down in eternal slumber. As time, this catastrophe stemmed from humanity. The greatest sin of humanity is arrogance, pride, and disdain for the divine. And one of the most famous stories about lycanthropy is that of Lycaon, the king of Arcadia. Due to his pride and arrogance, Lycaon dared to challenge the god Zeus with a cruel act, killing a child as an offering to the deity. When he discovered that cruel act in the bowl of meat, Zeus immediately transformed Lycaon into a wolf and revived the poor child. However, this was also the moment when Zeus realized that humanity had lost its inherent humanity. I think we should annihilate this corrupt human race to create a new generation that is better, more virtuous, and purer. After careful consideration, Zeus summoned all the gods and decided to destroy humanity. At first, the god intended to wield the power of thunder and lightning, but suddenly recalled the prophecy that one day, the entire world would be consumed in a sea of fire. Fearing that one day he would use his thunderbolts to destroy humanity, Zeus chose to flood the world with a great deluge instead. The god locked the north wind Boreas in the cave of Eulos, then set the damp south wind Notus free to fly away. Zeus assigned the task to the rainbow goddess Iris, commanding her to continuously draw water up to the sky. For this reason, the people's food supply was devastated by drought for an entire year. When the rains poured down from the heavens, the sea god Poseidon raised raging waves to drown all of mankind. The lions, tigers, cattle, and all land-dwelling creatures were swept away by the raging waters. The dolphins can swim so far that they reach the towering treetops on the mountains. The weary birds, their wings exhausted from soaring, finally had to descend, finding no perch to rest upon. Even those fortunate enough to survive the Great Flood could not escape the torment of hunger. But teachers, mankind is not extinct, there still remains a pair, a husband and wife. Deucalion is my husband, he is the son of Prometheus, the god who always wholeheartedly protects and aids mankind. Deucalion's wife was named Pyrrha. The couple settled in Thessaly to build their lives. Known for their kindness and virtue, they earned the mercy of Zeus, who granted them salvation. The god Prometheus obeyed Zeus's command, descending to earth to warn humanity of the impending disaster and how to avoid it. As his father instructed, Deucalion built a large boat and filled it with provisions. When the rain poured down and the water rose high, the couple quickly left their house to take shelter inside the Soul. The small boat was swept away by the current, drifting aimlessly under relentless downpours that lasted 9 days and nights. After 10 days adrift, Deucalion and his wife's raft landed on Mount Parnassus, the only mountain not submerged in the Great Flood. At that moment, Zeus also calmed his wrath. The rain gradually ceased, the floodwaters receded, and the land was revealed once more. After the Great Flood, Deucalion and his wife stepped out of the boat, stunned by the desolate and silent landscape, where only emptiness and ruin remained. They soon realized that the life ahead would be full of hardships, and the hardest part of all was the loneliness. Deucalion was utterly heartbroken upon realizing the truth. If I were the only one saved, how would others feel? Who would soothe the sorrow in my heart? My beloved wife, if the sea has taken you away, I would not hesitate to follow you in death, so the sea may embrace me too. Here are the English translation options based on the context. Metamorphoses, the poet Ovid. Deucalion and his wife groped their way down to the foot of the mountain and discovered an ancient temple, thickly covered with moss. Though their hearts were heavy with sorrow, the couple still thought to sincerely pray and offer thanks to the deities who had protected them from danger. At this very temple, the goddess Themis, the deity of justice, understood the sorrow of Deucalion and his wife, who did not wish to live in solitude. She conveyed the will of the gods to guide them. Cover your face, leave the temple, and cast your mother's bones behind you. Mother Nature is the greatest mother of humanity. Deucalion and his wife followed the instructions. To their amazement, the stones Deucalion threw behind his back suddenly turned into men. Every stone Pyrrha threw behind her turned into a woman. And so, humanity gradually revived upon the earth, bustling and lively. From then on, a race of stone people was born from the Earth Mother Goddess, living bound to the land as if it were their very breath. The era of this bronze race is also known as the Age of Demigod Heroes. This historical period is tied to legendary figures such as Perseus, Heracles, Odysseus, and Achilles, along with the grand yet tragic Battle of Troy. The Age of Heroes is the period immediately preceding the current age of humanity. In Greek mythology, the era of present-day humankind is also known as the Iron Age. Legend has it that this was humanity's most decadent era, when all sins rose to the surface, when reverence for the gods had vanished. Then all deities would abandon the earth. Humanity will be left to its fate until the day of reckoning arrives, until this world meets its doom. Like other belief systems, such as Christianity, Buddhism, or Greek mythology, they all contain warnings about human corruption and the peril of mankind's extinction. However, ancient beliefs all share a legend of a great deity who will appear to save humanity, even the entire world.